The air in International Terminal 3 was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and jet fuel. It was a Tuesday. The kind of day where the sheer volume of travelers makes security officers feel like they're drowning in a sea of faces. At the center of this chaos was Officer Silas Thorne. Silas wasn't like the other guards who relied on scanners. He was a student of human movement. He watched the way people carried their bags, the way they shifted their weight when nervous, and the way they avoided eye contact with the blue uniforms. But there was one person Silas never worried about. Elena Vance. Elena was a regular. For 3 years, she had been the face of Global Reach, a small but respected NGO that provided travel assistance to the disabled. She was always dressed in a spotless white volunteer uniform, her hair tied back in a professional bun. Every morning, like clockwork, she would arrive at the disability check-in counter, greet the staff with a warm smile, and take charge of a high-end medical wheelchair. To any observer, Elena was an angel. She spent her days pushing elderly passengers through the long, winding corridors of the airport, making sure they were comfortable, offering them water, and even holding their hands when they felt anxious about flying. The security teams at the fast-track lanes would see her coming and simply wave her through. She was a volunteer. She was helping the weak. To suspect Elena was like suspecting your own grandmother. But on this particular Tuesday, as Elena pushed an empty wheelchair back from gate 52, Silas noticed something that didn't fit the laws of physics. He watched her through the high-definition zoom of camera 14. Elena was pushing the chair with her right hand while checking her watch with her left. The chair was supposed to be empty. It was made of lightweight carbon fiber and aluminum. It should have glided across the terminal's thick, plush carpet like a leaf on water, but it didn't. As the wheels moved over the carpet, Silas saw the fabric of the rug compress deeply. The swivel wheels at the front didn't bounce over the floor transitions. They thudded. It was a heavy sound, a dense sound. Silas leaned closer to the monitor. He pulled up the skeletal tracking software that analyzed the strain on a person's muscles. The software highlighted Elena's forearms in bright red. It showed that she was exerting 40 pounds of force just to keep the empty chair moving in a straight line. An empty wheelchair weighs 15 pounds. Silas whispered to himself. So why is she pushing 80? Silas knew he couldn't act yet. He needed to understand the how. He began a deep dive into the technical specifications of the mobility devices used by Global Reach. He realized that Elena's NGO didn't use standard airport-provided chairs. They brought their own specialized medical equipment, claiming they were better suited for long-distance terminal travel. Silas spent the next 4 hours in the digital archives of the airport's cargo and maintenance division. He started looking for the NGO's shipping manifests. What he found was a masterpiece of deception. Global Reach wasn't just a charity. It was a front for a sophisticated chemical engineering operation. The secret was on the tubes of the chair. Standard X-rays would see bars of gold hidden inside pipes. No, the smugglers were smarter than that. They were using aqua regia. Aqua regia, a mixture of nitric acid and hydrochloric acid, is the only substance that can dissolve solid gold. Once dissolved, the gold becomes a high-density liquid, a deep orange-red fluid that carries incredible value but looks like nothing more than industrial waste or medical saline. Elena's wheelchair wasn't just a chair, it was a mobile tank. The carbon fiber frame was lined with a specialized resin that was resistant to acid. The hollow tubes of the chair were filled with 3 gallons of this gold-saturated liquid. To a standard scanner, it looked like liquid, just like water or cleaning fluid, which are common in medical equipment. But the real genius lay in the tires. Standard wheelchair tires are filled with air. Elena's were filled with a high-density, non-reactive polymer. This polymer acted as a shield. When the chair went through the thermal or density scanners, the polymer mimicked the biological signature of heavy rubber, masking the intense density of the liquid gold hidden in the core. Silas calculated the math. 3 gallons of gold-saturated liquid. At the current market price, Elena was moving nearly $200,000 in a single trip. And she did it 4 times a day. Silas began a ghost surveillance. He didn't follow Elena on the floor. He followed her through the blind zones, the areas of the airport where camera coverage was weak or non-existent. He noticed a ritual. After every successful drop-off at a gate, Elena would take the empty chair to a private disability-friendly restroom near the staff elevators. These restrooms were large, private, and most importantly had no cameras inside for privacy reasons. She would stay inside for exactly 6 minutes. Silas decided to investigate the restroom after she left. He went inside with a portable chemical sniffer. The air smelled of lavender and disinfectant, but the sniffer picked up a trace of something else. Nitric acid. It was faint, almost gone, but it was there. He looked at the floor. Near the base of the toilet, there was a tiny, microscopic scratch on the tile. It was a circular scratch, exactly the size of a wheelchair wheel. Silas realized what was happening. Elena wasn't alone. Inside that restroom, someone was waiting for her. Someone who had access to the airport's internal plumbing or cargo chutes. On Friday morning, Silas decided it was time. He didn't tell his supervisor Haino the airport SBR department would shut him down if they knew he was targeting a charity angel. He took a handheld density meter and waited near the fast-track lane. At 10:15 a.m., Elena appeared. She was pushing a young man this time, his legs wrapped in bandages. She looked tired, her eyes filled with sympathetic fatigue. "Officer Thorne," she said with a small, weary smile as she approached the gate. "Heavy day today. The poor boy is heading to Zurich for surgery." Silas felt a pang of guilt. The boy looked real. The bandages looked real. But he looked at the floor. The carpet was screaming under the weight of the chair. "I need to do a secondary sweep of the mobility device." "Elena," Silas said, his voice cold. The atmosphere changed instantly. The other guards looked at Silas like he was a monster. The passengers in line started whispering. "Are you serious?" "She's a volunteer," a woman yelled. Elena didn't panic. She stepped aside and gestured to the chair. "Of course, Silas. We want to be safe, don't we? Please, go ahead." Silas ran the density meter over the carbon fiber frame. The screen stayed green. He checked the liquid containers attached to the back. They were labeled as medical-grade oxygen and saline. The chemical sensor showed nothing but salt and water. He was confused. He checked the tires. They felt solid, but the meter showed them as standard polymer. "Is there a problem, officer?" Elena asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. Silas felt the sweat on his neck. He knew the gold was there. He could see the carpet compressing, but the machines were telling him he was wrong. He had to let her go. He watched as she pushed the boy toward the gate, the crowd giving him dirty looks as he stood there defeated. Silas went back to the CCTV room. He was obsessed now. He replayed the footage of the fast-track lane over and over, and then he saw it. He noticed Elena's hand. As she approached the gate, she had tapped a small, inconspicuous button on the side of the armrest. "It's an electromagnet," Silas gasped. The wheelchair was equipped with a series of small, high-powered electromagnetic coils. When activated, they created a Faraday cage effect around the internal tanks, disrupting the density meter's sensors and forcing them to return a standard reading. She had been cloaking the gold right in front of his eyes. But Silas also noticed something else. As Elena walked away, she wasn't pushing the same chair. The wheels were different. In the first frame, the wheels had a small silver rim. By the time she reached the gate, the rims were black. The disability restroom wasn't just a place to rest. It was a swap point. Elena would enter the restroom with the gold chair. Inside, a partner disguised as a janitor or a plumber would be waiting with an identical dummy chair. They would swap the wheels or the entire frame in under 60 seconds. The chair Silas had just scanned was the dummy. The gold chair was already being moved through the airport air service corridors by someone else. Silas didn't wait for backup. He knew the gold chair was headed for the cargo loading zone. He sprinted through the staff-only doors, his heart hammering against his ribs. He reached the maintenance tunnel that led to the tarmac. The air was cold here, smelling of grease and exhaust. In the distance, he saw a janitor pushing a trash cart. On top of the cart, partially covered by a black plastic bag, was the frame of a wheelchair. "Freeze. Security," Silas yelled, drawing his radio. The janitor didn't freeze. He abandoned the cart and ran into the maze of the baggage handling system. Silas chased him, jumping over, moving conveyor belts and dodging flying suitcases. The janitor was fast. He knew the layout of the underground better than any guard. He led Silas into the pit. the area where thousands of bags are sorted by automated robotic arms. Silas lost him. The janitor disappeared into a service hatch that led to the exterior of the airport. Silas turned back to the abandoned trash cart. He pulled away the black bag. There it was. The gold chair. He tapped the frame. This time, there was no electromagnetic cloak. He used a small emergency glass breaker tool and cracked a tiny hole in the carbon fiber. A thick, orange-red liquid began to ooze out. It looked like blood, but it smelled like acid. "I got you," Silas whispered, but the victory was short-lived. Silas called in the hazmat team to secure the liquid gold. He then radioed the gate to have Elena Vance arrested. "Officer Thorne," the dispatcher's voice came back, sounding confused. Elena Vance checked out of her shift 15 minutes ago. She's already cleared the parking exit. Silas felt a cold pit in his stomach. He realized the janitor hadn't been running away to escape. He had been running to draw Silas away from the gate. While Silas was chasing a janitor through the basement, Elena had calmly walked to her car. Her mission already accomplished. The gold chair he found was just one of many. The real shipment, the bulk of the wealth, had already been transferred into a series of medical waste containers that were loaded onto a flight to Dubai an hour ago. Elena hadn't just used a human shield, she had used Silas himself. She knew he was watching. She knew he would chase the janitor. She had turned the lead security officer into her own personal distraction. The investigation that followed was a disaster for the airport. The NGO Global Reach didn't exist. Every document, every badge, and every patient had been a paid actor or a fake identity. They had moved an estimated $50 million in gold through Terminal 3 over 3 years. Silas Thorne stayed on the force, but he was never the same. He no longer looked for suspicious bags or nervous faces. Now, he looked at the floor. He watched the way the carpet compressed under every traveler. He watched the way the wheels turned, because he knew that in a world of high-tech scanners and AI surveillance, the most dangerous things are the ones that are right in front of you, disguised as a helping hand. Elena was never caught. Some say she's in Europe, running a new charity. Some say she's retired on a private island. But every now and then, in airports across the world, a security officer will notice a wheelchair that seems just a little too heavy for the person sitting in it. And they'll remember the angel of Terminal 3. The next time you see someone being helped through an airport, don't just feel sympathy. Look closer. Look at the weight. Look at the wheels. Because the greatest trick the devil ever pulled wasn't convincing the world he didn't exist, it was convincing the world he was a volunteer.